The moment the clock struck midnight on my 20th birthday, my birth certificate transformed into an execution order for my entire family. I didn't shed a single tear when the woman who raised me destroyed my identity. I just watched her unknowingly hand me the keys to her absolute destruction. She thought she was discarding an unwanted orphan onto the streets, completely oblivious to the fact that those papers contained a secret that would permanently delete her from society before sunset. My name is Maya Vance. For 20 long years, I lived as a ghost in a house that felt more like a commercial prison than a home. My mother, Helen Vance, and my younger sister, Chloe, treated me like a literal shadow. While Chloe was showered with luxury designer clothes, private schooling, and high society parties, I was the one relegated to the dark attic room, forced to handle the heavy household chores, and constantly reminded that I was nothing but a burden. Whenever I asked Helen why she looked at me with such cold, deep-seated hatred, she would always give me the exact same chilling response. "Be grateful I didn't leave you where I found you." I spent my entire teenage life believing I was deeply flawed, working 16 hours a day between online freelance coding and local retail jobs, just to pay for my own basic groceries and Chloe's expensive vanity habits. Everything changed on July 8th, 2026. It was the night of my 20th birthday. There was no cake for me, no celebrations. Instead, Helen had thrown a massive, lavish party downstairs for Chloe, who had just passed her driving test. The sound of high society music and clinking glasses echoed through the floorboards of my damp attic room. I was sitting at my small desk, my laptop screen illuminating my face as I finalized a massive software compliance system for a private international tech venture. Suddenly, the attic door slammed open. Helen stood there, her expensive silk dress smelling of heavy perfume and expensive wine. Her face was twisted in an ugly, arrogant sneer. Behind her, Chloe stood smirking, holding a trash bag filled with my old clothes. "Get your things and get out of my house, Maya," Helen said, her voice dropping to a harsh, cold whisper. I stood up slowly, closing my laptop halfway. "What are you talking about, Mom? It's midnight. Where am I supposed to go?" Helen burst into a loud, mocking laugh that echoed off the bare walls. She reached into her leather purse, pulled out a dusty, yellowed manila folder tied with a faded red string, and slammed it directly into my chest. "I'm done pretending," Helen sneered, crossing her arms arrogantly. "You're 20 now. The state doesn't require me to shelter an orphan anymore. That folder contains the legal truth. I found you abandoned like trash 20 years ago, and I only kept you around to clean this house. You don't belong to the Vance bloodline. You are nothing." My hands were completely steady as I untied the red string. My heart didn't race. The years of emotional abuse had made me entirely immune to her words. I opened the dusty court deed from August 2006. My eyes bypassed the adoption stamp and went straight to the certified biological parent section at the bottom of the registry. My whole body went completely numb when I realized who those names belonged to. The text printed in bold black ink didn't read some unknown names from a dumpster. The names of my biological parents were Julian and Cynthia Vance. Julian Vance wasn't a stranger. He was Helen's older, unmarried stepbrother, the brilliant, low-profile founder of Apex Maritime Holdings, a massive multi-million-dollar international shipping container and logistics network based out of the commercial ports. He and his wife, Cynthia, had tragically perished in a sudden private helicopter accident in the winter of 2006, when I was only 3 months old. Helen hadn't rescued me from a dumpster. She had stolen me from a tragedy. I stared at the certified court addendum attached to the back of the file. Julian Vance's will explicitly stated that in the event of his untimely passing, his entire 100% controlling stake in Apex Maritime, along with a massive offshore commercial asset trust, would be placed under a temporary executor, his stepsister, Helen. But there was a catastrophic clause written in bold legal terms.
the temporary executorship would permanently expire and all asset routing rights would automatically transfer to his legal biological daughter, Maya Vance, at exactly 12 a.m. on her 20th birthday. Helen had spent 20 years treating me like an unwanted stray, deliberately hiding my true identity, just to ensure I never discovered that the very roof over her head, the luxury cars she bought for Chloe, and every single cent in her high society bank accounts belonged entirely to me. She assumed that by keeping me uneducated, broken, and isolated in the attic, she could simply throw me out on my birthday and quietly keep running the company through forged renewal signatures. She had no idea that I was a senior database engineer who had been tracking the public compliance audits of Apex Maritime for the last 6 months under an anonymous corporate alias. I looked up at her and said, "You have no idea what you just did." Helen's arrogant smirk flickered for a fraction of a second when she saw the complete lack of fear in my eyes. But her greed and pride quickly took over. She scoffed loudly, stepping back toward the attic stairs. "I know exactly what I did," Helen snapped, waving her hand dismissively. "I threw out the trash. You have exactly 10 minutes to clear out of this room before I call the private security team to drag you to the sidewalk. Don't ever let me see your face near my family again." "The family party is officially over, Helen," I said softly, my voice chillingly calm. She didn't even bother to listen. She turned around, laughing with Chloe, as they walked back downstairs to join their wealthy guests. The moment the door shut, the calm expression on my face vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating focus. I didn't waste a single second packing the clothes Chloe had thrown on the floor. I sat back down at my desk and pulled my laptop toward me. The digital clock on the bottom right corner of my screen read 12:05 a.m. The timeline had officially begun. For the last 3 years, Helen had been using a joint corporate routing protocol to siphon funds from Apex Maritime into her personal private accounts at Apex Sovereign Bank to fund her lavish lifestyle. Because she was the temporary executor, the banking system recognized her digital token, but what she didn't realize was that the entire back-end framework of Apex Sovereign Bank operated on automated, time-stamped smart contracts linked directly to the state's central court registry. I opened my secure encrypted terminal. 2 hours ago, anticipating this exact scenario, I had uploaded my verified DNA matching profile, my original birth certificate sequence from the folder, and a certified digital copy of my biological father's original will into the state's central corporate compliance database. The system had been sitting in a queue, waiting for my 20th birthday to officially register. Now, at 12:06 a.m., the system's status turned from a flashing amber to a solid, vibrant green. The system panel confirmed that legal age compliance was verified, and the executive transfer was fully activated. With a single, firm press of my enter key, I executed the primary override script. Instantly, a silent digital chain reaction was triggered across the entire financial infrastructure of the city. Because my biological father had structured the trust with an ironclad, immediate reversion clause, the moment the legal heir claimed the rights, the temporary executor's access was treated by the system as a critical security breach. I watched the terminal lines scroll rapidly in real time. First, the corporate banking tokens held by Helen Vance were flag-marked as invalid and permanently revoked. Second, the automated system initiated a full corporate audit freeze on every single commercial account associated with Apex Maritime Holdings. Third, and most devastatingly, because Helen had illegally linked her personal luxury credit cards and home mortgages directly to the corporate expense accounts as executor allowances, the system automatically flagged her personal finances for immediate emergency containment. I calmly closed my laptop, slid it into my black backpack alongside the yellow manila folder, and zipped up my dark hoodie. I didn't take anything else. The room that had been my prison for 20 years was no longer my concern. I walked down the creaking attic stairs. As I reached the grand hallway on the main floor, the lavish party was still in full swing.
Helen was standing in the center of the marble living room, surrounded by her wealthy, elite friends, proudly showing off a sparkling new diamond watch she had bought using the company's auxiliary credit line. Chloe was laughing nearby, taking photos for social media. Nobody noticed me as I walked quietly through the kitchen and out the side entrance into the cool night air. I stepped onto the pavement, the rain lightly tapping against my hoodie. I pulled out my phone and watched the countdown timer on my custom banking app. There were 15 minutes remaining until the daytime banking servers synchronized. I walked down the quiet, affluent street, found a local 24-hour coffee shop, and ordered a single black coffee. I sat by the window, the glow of my phone reflecting in my eyes as I prepared to watch Helen's entire fabricated reality completely implode from 3 miles away. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the corporate synchronization was complete. The silent digital trap I had laid at midnight had now manifested into the real physical world. Back at the Grand Vance estate, Helen was sitting at her glass dining table, sipping her morning tea while looking over a luxury travel brochure for a 3-month European cruise she planned to take with Chloe. She pulled out her sleek, black premium corporate credit card and handed it to her personal assistant. "Call the agency and book the presidential suite immediately," Helen ordered arrogantly, "and make sure it's charged to the primary corporate logistics account." The assistant nodded, walked over to the terminal, and swiped the card. A sharp, loud beep echoed through the room. The screen flashed a bright, violent red, showing that the transaction was completely declined and the account was frozen. Helen frowned, her face tightening with annoyance. "Try it again. The bank probably has a temporary server issue." The assistant swiped it a second time, then a third. The result was the same. Within seconds, Helen's personal cell phone began ringing violently. It was the head of corporate compliance from Apex Sovereign Bank. "Mrs. Vance," the banker's voice was trembling with absolute panic, "we have a catastrophic situation. As of 12:01 a.m. today, a primary legal override was executed against the Apex Maritime Holdings master accounts. Your administrative credentials have been completely wiped from our core system." Helen stood up so fast her chair screeched against the marble floor. "What are you talking about? I am the sole owner of that company. Reactivate my access right now." "We can't," the banker whispered, terrified. "The override came directly from the State Supreme Court's automated probate registry. A verified biological heir has claimed the estate. Furthermore, because your personal checking accounts, your luxury vehicles, and this very estate were funded through corporate allowance transfers that have now been flagged as unauthorized, the automated fraud system has placed a total permanent freeze on your entire financial line." Before Helen could even scream into the phone, a thunderous knock echoed through the heavy oak front doors of the mansion. Chloe came running down the stairs, crying in pure panic. "Mom, my phone isn't working. My credit cards are showing a zero balance, and my cart app says my vehicle has been locked by the leasing firm." Helen rushed to the front foyer and threw the doors open. Standing on her doorstep were 2 stern, uniform-clad county bailiffs, flanked by a senior forensic auditor from the State Treasury Compliance Office and a private security team wearing the official crest of Apex Maritime Holdings. The senior auditor stepped forward, pulling a certified, court-stamped document from his leather briefcase. "Helen Vance?" the auditor asked in a cold, monotone voice. "Yes? What is the meaning of this? Get off my property!" Helen shrieked, her voice cracking with terror. "This is no longer your property," the auditor stated flatly, handing her the papers. "As of midnight, your temporary executorship over the Julian Vance estate has officially terminated due to the legal age compliance of the primary heir. A forensic audit conducted at 1 a.m. revealed that over the last 7 years,
You have illegally siphoned over $4.2 million in unauthorized corporate funds into your personal lifestyle accounts. The head bailiff stepped forward, pointing to the grand driveway where Chloe's brand-new luxury sports car was already being hooked onto a flatbed repossession truck. Your corporate-funded vehicles are being impounded immediately, the bailiff announced loudly, his voice echoing through the wealthy neighborhood. Furthermore, this entire residential estate is legally deeded under Apex Maritime Holdings. The new primary owner has officially terminated your residency status as of 8 a.m. today. You have exactly 60 minutes to pack your basic personal clothing into garbage bags and vacate the premises. Everything else inside this house is a corporate asset and is now permanently seized.
No, this is a mistake. My niece Maya is a nobody. She was found in a dumpster. Helen screamed hysterically, her expensive jewelry shaking as she grabbed the bailiff's arm. You can't do this to me. I built this life. The private security guard stepped in, firmly removing her hand. Man, do not touch the officers. Your niece isn't a nobody. She is our new chief executive officer, and she has explicitly ordered a zero-tolerance policy for trespassers. From a black luxury sedan parked just outside the heavy iron gates of the estate, the window rolled down slowly. I sat in the back seat, dressed in a sharp, tailored black corporate suit, holding the yellow manila folder in my lap. I looked through the gates and watched the chaotic scene unfold. I saw Helen falling to her knees on the manicured lawn, weeping hysterically as the bailiffs handed her a black trash bag for her clothes. I saw Chloe screaming at the top of her lungs as her luxury car was towed away into the distance. They had spent 20 years trying to make me feel small, trying to hide the truth so they could live like royalty on stolen blood money. They thought a piece of paper hidden in a dark corner could alter reality forever. I rolled up the window, leaning back into the leather seat as my driver put the car into gear. The automatic digital notifications on my phone were scrolling endlessly, millions of dollars returning to their rightful routing lines, corporate operations normalizing under my direct signature, and a scheduled court hearing date for Helen's grand larceny charges popping up on my calendar. Helen and Chloe were left standing on the public sidewalk with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a trash bag, completely ruined by the very system they tried to manipulate. They wanted me to live as an outcast. Now the real world had permanently erased them from the only life they ever knew. Looking back at this journey, the greatest wisdom I can share is that the truth possesses an automated timing of its own, and greed always signs its own expiration date. When people spend decades building a life on foundations of cruelty, isolation, and deception, they become entirely blind to the systems working quietly around them. Real power does not come from screaming, fighting, or throwing insults in moments of anger. It comes from standing completely calm, gathering your facts, and allowing the natural consequences of law and systemic justice to execute the final blow. True validation doesn't require their permission or their apologies, because when the system of accountability finally synchronizes, it moves with absolute precision, leaving those who tried to diminish you entirely out of options.